The voice you will next hear is that of one who, through accident, has experienced blindness. Imagine the thoughts that ran through his mind as he left the hospital, not knowing if he would ever see again, and awaiting the doctor's decision on what, if anything, could be done for him. Fortunately, he recovered his sight. Later, he decided that he had experienced something which had awakened him to the plight of those who are permanently sightless. He wished to do something to assist them, if he could. He went to a school where guide dogs are trained, and the blind are taught to depend upon the eyes of these wonderfully trained animals. He went voluntarily blind, spending time at the school, blacked out by a blindfold, much as you are now. He lived as a blind person among the blind, to learn their problems and to understand their plight, so that he, too, could train these dogs. Today, he has many friends who are blind, any one of whom needs but express a desire for his assistance to know that he will respond. Such a request is never refused. In a moment, we will begin our experiment. Listen carefully and follow the instructions which are given, and above all, don't spoil the illusion that's being created by peeking or removing the blindfold until told to do so, as we start to play the game of Let's Pretend.
Yes, I too have been blind. And as a result of my own experience, I'm sure if you enter wholeheartedly into this program, you'll feel that your time has been wisely spent. You've often heard it said that experience is the best teacher. I'm convinced of that now. And that's why I know this game of make-believe will leave an impression with you that will last for a very long, long time. It's happened. You are now that industrial accident case. You're the same guy who never really thought it could happen to you. Perhaps now you'll remember saying, "Well, I do this day after day, and nothing ever happens to me." So you either didn't wear any eye protection at all, or you simply felt that glasses or goggles were too hot, too heavy, or maybe just too darn uncomfortable. Perhaps you just pushed them up on your forehead or dropped them down around your neck for just a second. Or perhaps you'd taken them off altogether. And then it happened. All in just one split second. That's all the time it takes for an accident to happen. Sure, you'd been told all this before, and many times. But let's face it, you really never quite believed it. But for the sickening sensation in your stomach, you know it now. You know it now, when it's too late. Now nothing you or anyone else can do will give you a second chance. Your blindness is a fact. You're blind. I know you're suffering agonizing pain, but it's nothing to the suffering you'll be going through mentally. It begins when the doctor takes off the bandages and you find even the faint hopes of the last few days smashed. Then comes the bitter realization that you're doomed to spend the rest of your natural life in total darkness. Now, and not until now, did you realize that it did happen to you. The remorse bitterness that goes with this realization, that's the real agony. Perhaps you blame the foreman or the safety man for not enforcing the company rules. Maybe you feel it's the company who is to blame for not furnishing some sort of eye protection that just couldn't be taken off while you're on the job. If you had only followed instructions, this could never have happened to you. For a while, you're bitter towards others, feeling sorry for yourself. But you soon realize that you'd better face the facts. And what are the facts? Well, for one thing, you're all washed up with your job. Not only that, but you won't even be able to go over to the plant and visit with the fellows who had come to be your friends, or down to the corner drugstore, or neighborhood tavern for a friendly beer or two. That is, unless someone takes you. Even then, you'll have a sort of strained, funny feeling like you don't belong. You can depend on it. Someone will have to be your companion and guide for a long, long time to come. For learning to get around by yourself takes a lot of patience and practice. Yes, you're blind, with no hope for anything different. No longer will you be able to enjoy the beautiful sunset. Never again will you see the radiant, happy smiles of your kids, your wife, your folks, as they open their gifts around the tree at Christmas time. From now on, the only thing you'll be able to see, in a way, are those things you can touch within arm's length. For you'll only see with your fingers. When your boy comes up to you and puts something on your lap and says, "See what I've got, Daddy?" you'll guess that if it's round, perhaps it's a ball. If it's square or oblong, the chances are that it might be a building block. When your wife shows you that new hat, she'll put it in your lap. By the touch of your fingers, you can tell whether it has a wide or narrow brim, a low or high crown, and whether it's trimmed with ribbons, cloth, or feathers. She'll have to describe the colors. And somehow or another, you won't feel much like kidding her about the new hat as you might have done in other, happier days. Bit by bit, your frustration builds up by the realization that you can no longer go where you want to go, like out to the ballpark or fishing. Nor can you settle back in an easy chair and watch the boxing or your favorite program on TV as you've done so many times in the past. It's all those things that make blindness so rough on a guy like yourself, someone who's used to getting around and doing things. But that's only the beginning. How are you going to pay the bills? Sure, you being an industrial case, you'll probably be paid a small percentage of your former earnings for the rest of your life. But you know how you have to scramble to make the ends meet now, even with a full paycheck. How then are you going to meet the rent, light, heat, grocery bill? And how about clothes and shoes for the family? To say nothing of the vacations you've always looked forward to. How about the schooling you want your kids to have? How about insurance and the future security of your wife and children? Now it commences to look as if you're going to have to find some way of adding to your income. That's not going to be easy. You're going to learn soon that a blind man is in a tough spot. Of course, you'll be grateful to learn about the social agencies that teach useful trades such as weaving rugs, caning chairs, and a few more things a blind man can do. You might be able to take over a newspaper stand, which means learning how to distinguish the different coins by touch. But before you can enter anything like a useful occupation, you must first learn the simple things of everyday life. What do I mean by that? To give you the answer, let's take just one day, any day, in the life of a blind man, and see what some of the problems are and what can be done about them. Take the start of the day. How do you know it's morning when you wake up? There's no more daylight for you, just total, unending darkness. And in most parts of the city, you can't hear the birds cheerily chirping. Of course, if there's any point in your getting up at a certain hour, you can use an alarm clock. Remember, I said you could see, in a way, anything within an arm's length. How do you tell time, then? Well, the first thing you do is to take off the glass covering the face of the clock. Throw it away. You'll have no further use for it. From now on, you'll feel the position of the hands very carefully with your fingers so that they're not moved from the correct time. Of course, you know the hand that comes closest to the rim is the long, the minute hand, and the other is the short, the hour hand. Soon you'll be able to tell time by touch and won't be confused by even some of the hard ones, such as whether it's 10 minutes after 3 or 15 minutes after 2. Maybe you've been one of those guys whose wife has always complained about your running around the house without slippers after you get up in the morning. Well, she won't have that problem with you any longer, For no longer can you see the things that have been dropped on the floor and be able to step over them. And you'll find chairs and table legs popping out of nowhere to stub your toes against. Yes, those slippers are going to be very important to you from now on. And here's a suggestion that will save you tempers and bruises. Before you become exasperated by banging your head against the bed rail retrieving slippers that have been kicked under the bed, try placing them on a chair, which you'll locate right next to your bed. All right. This morning your slippers have been right in place, and you're ready to start for the bathroom. But just a minute. Before you set out to encounter the hazard of even that short trip, like banging your shoulder against the door jamb or running smack into a half-open door and knocking out a few teeth, let me give you a couple of hints on the safest way to get around the house. First, put your guard up by raising one of your arms straight out in front of you, then bending your elbows so that your forearm is horizontal across your body. You'll soon learn that the bumps you get this way hurt less than when you bang your head. When you get to the door of your bedroom, pause for a moment before you start down the hall to the bathroom. Do you know how many steps it is to the bathroom? You'll find it important to know, because if you pass the stairway to downstairs on the way there, you might turn too soon and fall down the stairs. In the bathroom, can you pick out your toothbrush? Or did you just know it had an amber or green or red handle? Can you tell yours without handling the others? Well, from now on, you'll be insisting that you have a place for everything, and that everything be kept in its place, for you'll crave the independence this gives you more than almost anything else. Can you put your tooth powder on your toothbrush without spilling too much of it? Probably not. At least not the first time. But anyway, let's try it right now. This is how I do it. There's a can of tooth powder on the table in front of you. Take the top off the can and hold the can in one hand. Next, pick up the toothbrush that's also on the table using the other hand. Hold the bristles between the thumb and the forefinger, making a sort of trough for the powder. Then you can feel the can against the fingers while you're putting the tooth powder on your brush. Possibly this seems a little awkward this first time, but you'll improve with practice. All right, let's set the toothbrush and can down. Now you're ready to shave. But have you ever tried to shave in the dark? It's quite a trick. Nothing much to lather your face. But shaving, even with a safety razor, is something else again, especially around the nose. And when you touch your face and feel something warm and a little sticky, you'll know that you've cut yourself. The electric razor has been a wonderful thing for the blind, and if you don't have one now, you'll probably want to get one before long. Another thing, you'll start combing your hair straight back, because any attempts at parting will be so far off that you'll be conspicuous, and you'll find yourself avoiding everything that calls attention to your blindness. You're ready now to return to your bedroom, but first remember to get your guard up and count those steps. Back in the bedroom safely. You're all set to get dressed for the day. But do you know where all your articles of clothing are? Well, if you don't know now, you soon will, for you're going to get awfully tired of asking. For instance, take me in the matter of socks. I decided to wear nothing but black because that goes with just about anything you wear and meant just one less thing to worry about. But do you know your black shoes from brown ones? Maybe one pair has coarse grain leather and design and the stitchings. The other pair, plain tip. Or perhaps one pair has rubber heels. Now feel the shoelaces that are on the table in front of you. Possibly one pair of your shoes will have flat laces, the other round. Believe me, These are the ways you're going to know your shoes from now on. You're now ready to put on your shirt. But when you do, you'll find that a lot of times you'll get a button in a wrong buttonhole. That can be pretty aggravating. So one of these days you'll get in a habit, like I did, of always starting at the neckband and working down carefully, one button at a time. How do you suppose you'll be able to tell one suit from the other? Well, one may be double-breasted and another single-breasted. One may have patched pockets and the other has flap pockets. Can't go too far wrong there. But you'll soon find that all trousers are pretty much alike, except that you can learn the difference in the feel of the cloth. To show you what I mean, suppose you pick up the small pieces of cloth that are among the articles in front of you. You'll find one that is rougher than the others, like a tweed. One will feel much softer, like flannel. Another will be smooth and close woven, like gabardine. Another thing, at first you'll find that it'll be much easier for you to always hang your suit in the same place. For instance, you hang your blue suit in the far left-hand side of the closet, the gray suit in the center, and the brown one in the far right-hand side. Then all you have to do is to remember the location. Now you've finished dressing and are ready to go downstairs. But before leaving the room, you want to make sure the lights are out. You'll find your wife will have a way of leaving the lights on for you. She just can't seem to understand that light means nothing to you, you who live in never-ending darkness. If the light most commonly used in your bedroom is the table lamp, go over there and touch the bulb. If it's warm, turn it off. If it's not heated, leave it alone. If the light happens to be a ceiling fixture, push the switch and listen carefully. You may have noticed this before, but if you haven't, there's a lot of difference in the sounds of the switch when you turn it on and when you turn it off. In the off position, you notice that it has a much lower tone. About now, you're commencing to learn that nature has a way of helping those folks who have lost their sight by making the other senses far keener and sharper. For example, I just mentioned the sense of touch when feeling the fabric of your clothes, and the sense of hearing when listening for the tone of the light switch. You'll notice, too, that your sense of smell will become much more developed. And while we're on this subject, I believe I smell coffee and bacon right now. Nothing like it. So let's go down to breakfast. First, let's stop at the door of the bedroom again. Remember to put up your guard and count the steps down the hall to the top of the stairway. When you reach there, let's wait just a minute. You probably don't know the number of steps to downstairs, so let's count them carefully as we go. This is important to know because you can fall just about as hard and hurt yourself almost as much on the bottom step as you can on the top. Now let's find our way to the breakfast table. Here I'd like to offer just a few suggestions. First, you'll soon learn that you can cause a lot of trouble during the meal by moving your hands quickly or reaching for things with a sudden motion. That can result in knocking over glasses and spilling liquids on the tablecloth, and perhaps cluttering some of the silverware to the floor. That's not so good. So take it easy and start from the edge of the table to veer upward very slowly and carefully with your fingers until you locate the objects you're after. Do you have any idea how you'd go about filling a glass of water without spilling it over the table? Here's how I do it. First, I hold the glass with one hand and place my first finger on the rim of the glass with the first joint of the finger sticking down inside of the glass. Then I lift the glass until the rim is under the pouring lip of the pitcher. Next, I tip the pitcher and let water run into the glass very slowly until I can feel the water touching the tip of my finger. Then I stop pouring and set the pitcher down very carefully. It's time now to get on with the breakfast. There isn't too much of a problem in drinking a glass of orange juice, eating a piece of toast, or drinking a cup of coffee. But if you're having a bowl of cereal, you may need a little help. Perhaps you'd like a little sugar over the cereal. So pick up the sugar bowl and hold it over the cereal before you try to get to the spoonful of sugar. At first it'll be hard for you to know when the spoon is being held level so that the sugar won't spill. When you're ready to pour the milk or cream, you do this the same way you fill your glass of water. If you like eggs for breakfast, it's best to have them scrambled, which aren't too hard to handle, or soft-boiled in a cup. Go easy with fried eggs. They can be plenty messy. I know. But your real problem in eating will come with the evening meal. First, you ought to make sure that you are getting the right size bites of food to get in your mouth. That means learning the weights of the different foods you eat. For instance, if you take an average bite of pie or fruit cake, they both weigh about the same because they're solid foods. But on the other hand, I'm sure you'll agree with me that you'd have a lot of trouble trying to stuff the same weight of sponge cake into your mouth. For a long, long time, you're going to need someone to cut your food for you. To learn how to eat a meal without attracting a lot of attention to yourself will require a great deal of patience on your part and a lot of help from others. For some time to come, you're going to find that the most satisfactory kind of a meal will consist of sandwiches. If you're at all like me, the first thing you want at breakfast is a cigarette. So let's you and I have a smoke. There are ashtrays on the table. You shouldn't have any trouble locating them. Your main trouble will be in getting a light. Suppose you try doing it my way. Pick up the cigarette that's on the table in front of you. Place one end of it between your lips. Now, take up the book of matches and tear a match from the book. In keeping with the good safety practice, make very sure that the cover of the matchbook is closed. Now, strike the match. Hold it in your right hand. Take hold of the cigarette with the thumb and the first finger of your left hand. Have the finger of your left hand on top of your cigarette with the tip of the finger about even with the end that you're going to light. Now bring the match slowly up to the end of the cigarette. When you begin to feel the heat on the tip of your finger of your left hand, draw in, and you'll probably get a light. Now may I have your attention again, please? You've finished breakfast. How will you spend the rest of the day? It'll be a long day, because minutes drag on like hours to a blind man. No more will you pick up the morning paper to read the latest news, or the inning-by-inning description of the last night's ball game. It'll probably be years before you can read again. And when you do, it'll be by Braille. There's a sheet of Braille among the articles on the table in front of you. Pick up that sheet. Feel it. Carefully, with the tips of your fingers. You'll find that each letter of the Braille alphabet takes a place on the sheet of about 1/4 of an inch square. There are 6 dots in each of those squares, arranged just like the spots on the 6 of spades in a deck of ordinary playing cards. 2 columns, side by side, with 3 dots in each side. But if only the dot on the upper left side corner is raised, it reads the letter A. When 2 dots in the upper left side corner are raised, it is B. When both the upper left and the upper right dots are raised, it is the letter C, and so on through the entire alphabet. By running your fingers over these dots from left to right and across the page, you can spell out each word as you go along. Already you're thinking, what a slow and laborious way of getting the news. But you can turn to your radio. Of course, you'll miss your television, but soon you'll appreciate what a blessing the radio and record players are for those who live in constant darkness. Yes, the radio will act as your newspaper, your theater, your ballpark, and boxing ring. You'll even learn to enjoy market broadcasts. With time beginning to hang heavy on your hands, you'll probably feel the urge to talk to an old friend. Of course, you won't be able to see his familiar features, but you can call him on the phone and hear his voice. But when you get to the phone, do you recall what the dial's like? You'd certainly looked at enough of them in the past. Do you know what's in the first circle? Are they numbers or letters, or both? You don't remember. Okay, I'll tell you. In the first circle, there's only the numeral 1. In the second circle, there's the numeral 2 and the letters A, B, C. In the third circle, you'll find the numeral 3 and the letters D, E, F, and so on down to the last circle, which contains the word operator and the figure O. Suppose your friend's number is Main 33571. To dial that number, you count around to the sixth circle to locate the letter M and dial the first letter. Then you dial the second circle for A, only this time you keep your finger in the circle going both ways. Then all you have to do is drop your finger one circle to get to number 3. Dial that twice. Then if you again keep your finger in the circle going both ways each time, all you have to do is to drop down 2 more circles to 5. Drop down 2 more circles for 7, and then back again to the first circle for 1. Maybe this sounds too complicated for you right now, and if you think so, you can always put your finger in the last circle, which reads operator, and dial just once. When the operator answers, explain to her that you're blind and tell her the number you wish to be connected with. She'll be very glad to get your number for you. But I know, as sure as I'm talking to you now, that it won't be long before you've memorized the dial and are calling numbers. Some may be wrong, but being able to do things for yourself will become one of your greatest desires. Are you now commencing to understand some of the things, the very simple things, that you'll have to learn before you can even start to school to learn a trade? But yet there's another phase of your existence which will be very important to you in this period of drastic readjustment, and that is how you will get the exercise your body needs. Remember, your only physical disability is your eyes. Your body will still require a certain amount of activity. There's certainly not going to be a very great range of things that you can do, but here is a suggestion which will help if you live in a house with a backyard. String an ordinary clothesline from the corner of the steps in your back porch to the back fence. Then you can walk up and down the backyard all by yourself by keeping one hand on the clothesline. It's a good idea to tie one knot a few feet from the fence and another one a few feet from the porch. In walking back and forth, you'll know that when your hand touches these knots, that it'll be time to turn around and go in the opposite direction. No use running into some obstruction and learning the hard way. Except for these trips up and down your backyard, you'll spend much of your time sitting around the house with little or nothing to do and wishing very hard that there were some ways in which you could occupy your mind and hands. Remember how irritated you used to get when you were asked to repair Junior's bike, to fix that living room chair, or put in a new fixture? But, oh boy, what wouldn't you give to be able to do just one of those odd jobs again? Just something to keep you busy, to make you feel useful. The importance of this is something to really think about. Then you begin to think hard. If you could only have your life to live over again, if there was some way of blotting out that terrible experience and being a whole human being again, to be able to work, to live, to see, like the others. I am sure there is not one person in this room who would willingly, or through an act of negligence, want to feel that he had contributed to his fellow workers spending the rest of his life in total darkness, as you and I are now. But remember this: whenever you fail to tell others about safety and eye protection, you may be doing just that. At least you should have some small conception now of what a loss of sight can mean through this experience of having played the game of let's pretend.